Welcome back to Freightwaves Now on this Monday morning. We're going to welcome Dr. Mark Scott from the University of Arkansas to the show today. Dr. Scott, thank you for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about what retailers with some hefty inventories might be doing to combat this softer holiday season. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you as always. Good morning and good to see you all as always.
Good to see you as well, Dr. Scott. So it's great to have you on because I always love your takes and I always find them very insightful. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say about these retailers right now that have been stuck with so much inventory and what could they potentially do during this peak season?
Okay, well, it's interesting. So inventory levels are higher than they historically have been. There are, there are three probably contributing factors, some more than others. The first is the receipt of delayed inventory due to constraints over the past 2 years in the supply chain that has eventually arrived into retailer facilities. The other is, and this one is probably the extent of this impact, we're not sure or it's debatable, and that is depending on accounting methods and inflation, the direct effect of inflation on inventory valuations, right? And then the third is, which I tend to believe personally is a significant contributing factor in addition to receipts on inventory that was delayed, is the early ordering of the anticipation of the holiday peak. And that is that a lot of retailers, in an effort to get and secure inventory to keep shelves full over the holiday season, ordered inventory pretty early, and that inventory has arrived. Now, what could retailers do, to your question, Anthony? Well, there are a number of things that we've seen occurring. First is, and I think this is here to stay, there's a statement that October is the new November. I'm sure you all would have probably received, I have received it and I've seen it, ads, commercials, marketing materials on events, loyalty program incentives, membership incentives that bring deals and discounts and sales closer up to us currently, as opposed to waiting later on in the holiday season. As you walk retail stores across the nation as well, what you would tend to see is, I suspect that retailers in some cases are taking markdown dollars on particular categories and running discounts at stores to also move through inventory. Right now, there is a third aspect which I think that we'd probably touch on a bit more, I'm assuming, and that is that the way consumers are shopping will have a direct effect on what retailers can do. And what do I mean by that? We saw a significant surge in e-commerce activity over the past 2 years. As a matter of fact, 81% of consumers in a recent study intend to do some portion of their holiday shopping online. But what we also do have emerging is a revisiting and a resurgence at the store level. And as a result of that, an increase in omni-channel activity that is driving what we call buy online and pick up in store activity. And that is significantly impacting what retailers can potentially do and how they address inventory levels. Initially, that's my overtake. I look forward to getting into the nuances as much as we could, but that's my take initially.
So, Dr. Scott, when you're talking about these retailers, especially on the big box side, thinking like the Targets, the Walmarts, the Amazons of sorts, obviously we're not going to know how the impacts for this softer peak season looks to their financials until probably the end of the year, or they release their full earnings for 2022 or even just their Q4 earnings for 2022. Do you have any kind of forecasted expectations of some of these companies? We're looking at potentially big profit hits, or we're looking at some big losses. What can we expect there?
You know what I think? I think that's a really good question, and for me to project with a level of accuracy, as you know, would be challenging. But this is what I would say. This is what I would say. There are there is a divergent effect when it comes to consumer and consumer demand. So on aggregate, is demand softening? Yes. What is occurring too is if you do segment customers, you would see that a significant proportion of customers, particularly customers in households that make 100,000 plus dollars per year, a significant proportion of that particular segment of customer is actually very excited to shop this coming season. As a matter of a fact, a lot of customers in that particular segment of the market have their savings rates have increased over the past 2 years. And what we are seeing is there is a significant pent up intention to shop over the holiday seasons. And I think retailers know it. They're using data and data science and predictive analytics to market to that particular segment. So, in terms of the effect of, of softer demand on retailer financials, what happens is consumers in particular segments shop for items, generally discretionary items that are generally at a higher margin, and this may offset some of the softer demand. There is also another dynamic as as the economy has opened back out. There's been an increase in the willingness to travel. So for the coming holiday season, there is a projected uptick in travel to celebrate the holidays. And what that also does is open up some categories that we previously saw some softer demand. Think holiday foods, particular types of gift items, particular types of accessories that align with traveling to celebrate. And there's going to be an uptick in that particular segment. Now, that is not to negate in any way, shape, or form, right? The fact that there is another segment of customers for which demand is softened, and there will be a propensity to shop less for discretionary goods and to actually look and switch out for alternative brands from more expensive brands, which tend to be higher margin ones, to more generic brands. But the high income, younger customer segment, that level of pent up propensity to spend and excitement of for the holiday season, I actually think could offset some of the projected profit negative adverse profit impacts. We'll see, but I'm not sure it is as dismal because we segment customers. That's my opinion.
Dr. Scott, I think that's an amazing take here and very interesting and intriguing to see how this will all play out. When we're talking about some of those higher end discretionary goods and really inventory levels being so high, do you see any issues around not just finished goods being stockpiled up in certain inventory warehouses, but also things that are still a work in process that haven't yet been completed, really starting to add on to the inventory issues?
Yes, definitely. So if we take the supply chain by segments and we look at works in process inventory, in particular segments of the economy, works in process inventory is also beginning to climb significantly. I had a recent conversation with a number of suppliers in this space, and what is happening, particularly in make to order industries, highly customized goods, what you call specialty goods. A lot of those types of manufacturers, suppliers, and distributors are sitting on works in process inventory in anticipation of sales, hoping that demand doesn't soften, but they have to build on works in process between generally July to probably towards the end of September. So they're sitting on that inventory now, hoping the markets don't soften. So, yes, that is occurring, not just from the finished goods inventory. And Anthony and Kaylee, I will say this, right? There is a dynamic occurring for retailers in handling finished goods inventory that is strictly contingent on how we will buy. This coming holiday season, is there gonna be a significant re-emergence at physical stores? Are most of our purchases gonna be online? Or are we going to purchase product buying online and picking up in store? For instance, the proportion at which me and my family do that has increased, right? So we buy online and go pick up in the store. The ramification for retailers is this: inventory ownership and the changing of inventory ownership stands to be very dynamic depending on how we buy. So, for instance, do retailers hold goods at their centralized facilities to ensure control? Do they distribute that inventory across wider distribution networks by allowing their 3PLs to own and distribute that inventory on their behalf? Or do they pile up inventory at the store level in anticipation of store purchases plus online purchases that are picked up in the store? So the finished goods inventory and those levels and how the sell through on those levels is going to be contingent on how we buy. I think I got to your question there, Anthony. Correct?
You definitely did. You
Absolutely.
definitely did.
Dr. Scott, thank you for joining us this morning. Always interesting to hear from you, and we're going to keep a watch on this as we move through the fourth quarter. Right now, we're going to head on over to Isaiah Buchanan. He's got our first check of what's trending on social media this morning.